English 1A, Reading and Composition, Academic Writing, Part 2. Drawing analogies. An analogy points out a similarity between two things that are otherwise different and can be an effective means of arguing a point. At times, an analogy is clearly off base, in which case it is called a false analogy. False analogy. If we can send a spacecraft to Pluto, we should be able to find a cure for the common cold. The writer has falsely assumed that because two things are alike in one respect, they must be alike in others. Tracing causes and effects. Demonstrating a connection between causes and effects is rarely simple. Writers may assume that because one event follows another, the first is the cause of the second, which is known as post hoc. From the Latin post hoc ergo propter hoc, meaning after this, therefore, because of this. Weighing options. When reasoning about problems and solutions, writers must weigh options. When writers set up a false choice between their preferred option and one that is clearly unsatisfactory, they create an either-or fallacy. Make an assumption. An assumption is a claim that is taken to be true without the need of proof. There is a danger in failing to spell out and prove a claim that is clearly controversial. Argument with missing claim. Violent crime is increasing, therefore we should vigorously enforce the death penalty. It is assumed that the death penalty deters violent criminals, and that most audience will agree. The writer also assumes that the death penalty is a fair punishment for violent crimes. When a missing claim is an assertion that few would agree with, we say that a writer is guilty of a non sequitur, Latin for it does not follow. Deducting conclusions, deductive reasoning. When we deduct a conclusion, we, like Sherlock Holmes, put things together. We establish that a general principle is true, that a specific case is an example of that principle, and that therefore a particular conclusion about that case is a certainty. In real life, such absolute reasoning rarely happens. Approximations of it, however, sometimes occur. Deductive reasoning can often be structured in a three-step argument called a syllogism: the major premise, the minor premise, and the conclusion. Examples: anything that increases radiation in the environment is dangerous to public health. That's the major premise. Nuclear reactors increase radiation in their environment. That's the minor premise. Therefore, nuclear reactors are dangerous to public health. That's the conclusion. Deductive arguments break down if one of the premises is not true or if the conclusion does not logically follow from the premise. Untrue premise. The police do not give speeding tickets to people driving less than 5 miles per hour over the speed limit. Dominic is driving 59 miles per hour in a 55 miles per hour zone. Therefore, the police will not give Dominic a speeding ticket. The conclusion is true only if the premises are true. If the police sometimes give speeding tickets for driving less than 5 miles per hour over the speed limit, Dominic cannot safely conclude that he will avoid a ticket. Conclusions don't necessarily follow. All members of our club ran in this year's Boston Marathon. Jay ran in this year's Boston Marathon. Therefore, Jay is a member of our club. The fact that Jay ran the marathon is no guarantee that he is a member of the club. Presumably, many marathon runners are non-members. Assuming that both premises are true, the following argument holds up. Conclusion follows. All members of our club ran in this year's Boston Marathon. Jay is a member of our club. Therefore, Jay ran in this year's Boston Marathon. Distinguish between legitimate and unfair emotional appeals. Many issues worth arguing about have an emotional as well as a logical dimension. Legitimate emotional appeal. It is anti-American to be against having a retail giant set up shop in one's community. Some people would say so. On the other hand, if you board up Main Street, what's left of American? Emotional appeals are frequently misused. Many of the arguments we see in the media, for instance, strive to win our sympathy rather than our intelligent agreement. A TV commercial suggesting that you will be thin and sexy if you drink a certain diet beverage is making a pitch to emotion. Unfair emotional appeals. The progressive proposal to bring a ski resort in the state park has been carefully reached by Western Trust, the largest bank in the state. Furthermore, it is favored by a majority of the local merchants. The only opposition comes from narrow-minded, hippie environmentalists who care more about trees than they do about people. One of their leaders was actually arrested for disturbing the peace several years ago. Words with strong positive or negative connotations, such as progressives and hippies, are examples of biased language. Attacking the people who hold a belief, environmentalists, rather than refuting their argument is called ad hominem, a Latin term meaning to the man. Associating a prestigious name, Western Trust, with the writer's side is called transfer. Claiming that an idea should be accepted because a large number of people, the majority of merchants, are in favor is called the bandwagon appeal. Bringing in irrelevant issues, the arrest, is a red herring named after a trick used in fox hunts to mislead the dogs by dragging a smelly fish across the trail. Judge how fairly a writer handles opposing views. Some writers address the arguments of the opposition fairly, conceding points when necessary and countering others, all in a civil spirit. Other writers will do almost anything to win an argument, either ignoring opposing views altogether or misrepresenting such views and attacking their opponents. In your writings, you build credibility by addressing opposing arguments fairly. In your reading, you can assess the credibility of your source by looking at how they deal with views not in agreement with their own. Describing the views of others. Writers and politicians often deliberately misrepresent the views of others. One way they do this is by setting up a straw man, a character so weak that he is easily knocked down. The straw man fallacy consists of an oversimplification or outright distortion of opposing views. Writing in the disciplines. Quoting opposing views. Quoting the words of writers who hold opposing views is a good idea, for it assures some level of fairness and accuracy. When a writer deliberately distorts a source through the device of ellipsis dots and the omitted words are crucial to the author's meaning, omitting them is obviously unfair. College courses expose you to thinking of scholars in many disciplines, such as the humanities, the social science, the science, and the professions, and applied science. Each field has its own question, evidence, language, and convictions, but all disciplines share certain expectations for good writing. Find commonalities across disciplines. A good paper in any field needs to communicate a writer's purpose to an audience and to explore an engaging question about a subject. Effective writers make an argument and support their claim with evidence. Writers in most fields need to show the thesis they're developing, or in the science, the hypothesis they're testing, and counter opposition for other writers. All disciplines require writers to document where they found their evidence and from whom they borrowed ideas. Recognize the questions writers in a discipline ask. One way to understand how discipline asks different questions is to look at assignments on the same subject in various fields. The question you ask in any discipline will form the basis of the thesis for your paper. The questions themselves don't communicate a central idea, but they may lead you to one. Whenever you write for a college course, try to determine the kinds of questions scholars in the field might ask about a topic. You can find clues in assigned readings, lecture or discussion topics, email discussion groups, and the paper assignment itself. Understand the kinds of evidence writers in a discipline use. You must support any claims you make with evidence, facts, stats, examples, and illustrations, visuals, expert opinions, and so on. The kinds of evidence used in different disciplines commonly overlap. Become familiar with a discipline's language conventions. Every discipline has a specialized vocabulary. As you read the articles and books in a field, you'll notice certain words and phrases that come up repeatedly. Use discipline-specific terms only when you are certain that you and your readers fully understand their meaning. In addition to vocabulary, many fields of study have developed specialized conventions for point of view and verb tense. Use a discipline's preferred citation style. In any discipline, you must give credit to those whose ideas or words you have borrowed. Avoid plagiarism by citing sources honestly and accurately. Each discipline follows a particular system of citation that its members have agreed on. Writers in humanities usually use the system established by Modern Language Association, MLA. Scholars in some social science, such as psychology and anthropology, follow the style guidelines of the American Psychological Association, APA. Scholars in history and some humanities typically follow the Chicago Manual of Styles, CMS. Understand writing assignments in the discipline. When you are asked to write in a specific discipline, become familiar with the distinctive features of the writing in that discipline. Then read the assignment carefully and identify the purpose of the assignment and the types of evidence you are expected to use. This concludes Academic Writing Part 2. See you next time.